If you're a gamer, chances are the name Dracula doesn't bring to mind images of Bram Stoker or Bela Lugosi, but instead of Konami's influential platforming franchise. Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Konami's Castlevania series brought together all the icons of horror history, like Frankenstein's monster or Death himself, and wrapped them into one package filled to the brim with gothic atmosphere. Sure, it was never completely serious, but when you're vanquishing the monsters in castles, cemeteries, temples, or mansions, you feel like you were defeating evil itself. That's a feeling that distinguished it from other happy-go-lucky platformers of the time, and helped cement its place in the hearts of gamers everywhere. With tight controls, difficult but not impossible levels, great boss battles, and absolutely killer soundtracks, the formula had seemingly been perfected right from the first game. And subsequent entries only added to its fame. That is not to say the franchise never changed, though. As the years went on, Konami constantly tried to innovate to keep the recipe fresh and exciting for new generations of gamers, but it still always kept some of the most memorable elements that fans had come to expect.
Die, monster! You don't belong in this world!
It was not by my hand that I'm once again given flesh.
Less successful entries like Castlevania 64 and Legacy of Darkness attempted the jump to 3D and fell kind of flat, but are often appreciated for the effort made to improve what was already great instead of just resting on the laurels. And then there's Castlevania Judgment. Defying every convention the series had experimented with, Konami made a 180-degree shift away from what fans all over the world had come to know and love when they presented this fighting game exclusively for the Nintendo Wii in 2008. Now, you might be thinking to yourself that merging a genre focused on precision with a console that exploded in popularity thanks to its widely marketed motion controls would be a bad idea, and you'd be totally right. Even Mr. Igarashi, the game's producer, basically admitted as much by making the combat more simple and accessible to account for this. Let us tell you right now that it does not work. It's easy enough for casual play, sure, but it's still impossible to master tight timings, such as dodging incoming attacks, thanks to the imprecise motion sensors of the Wii nunchucks. If you want to experience the best of what this game has to offer, you need a GameCube controller. But that unfortunately also exposes you to the flawed underlying mechanics in gameplay. Even with the stiffest control sticks, your character feels like they're gliding across the surface at max speed. And what makes it worse is that since this is an arena fighting game, the camera never sits still and has difficulty tracking the action. It's bad enough that we can't react enough quickly to match Alucard's movements, so we shouldn't have things outside our control also getting in the way. The second major problem here is the pace of the combat. Igarashi's tweaks to the fighting system were supposed to make it more dynamic, but it feels like the complete opposite way too often. The stages are big enough that running away and spamming projectiles is a perfectly viable strategy, but the stages are also filled with hazards that interrupt movement, and in some rare cases can even stun lock the AI to death. Hey, we'll take the win, but it still feels cheap. Even the special moves are obnoxious time sinks that can spend like tens of seconds to complete, and that's a huge blow to players who like to push the tempo and play at a fast pace. You'll gradually find yourself avoiding movement and sticking with spammy, boring characters just to avoid these problems, and that gets old pretty quick. Let's just say that there's a reason this game was never featured at EVO. So, we've established that there's absolutely nothing here for fighting game fans, but what about Castlevania fans? Well, this title falls short of expectations in this regard as well. The cast is poorly balanced, there's mediocre representation of the franchise's history, and the designs of each character are almost unanimously bad. Guys like Simon Belmont may have never been particularly understated, but here there seems to be a conscious attempt to make him as edgy and hardcore as possible.
I see. So this road may lead me to the challenge I seek after all.
Then, on the complete other side of the spectrum are characters like Carmilla, who are full-on fan service. Not only does this ruin the integrity of the character, but you can't even ignore it because it plays such a prominent role in certain cutscenes. It's frankly just childish and cringy, and it probably tells you everything you need to know about the quality of the actual writing. In short, it's just really bad.
But mama say me can be human.
The Castlevania series has had its ups and downs, but at their core, each entry remained distinctly Castlevania. Judgment stands out for throwing all of that away and comes off as a rushed cash grab full of flaws and compromises that betrayed any potential it might have had. Longtime fans see their favorite characters butchered, while Nintendo players looking for a quick fighting game fix were given a title with bad controls. It gets a few points for delivering on the soundtrack, as always, but it's not worth sitting through the rest of the bitterly disappointing package to experience it. That is why Castlevania Judgment is the worst Castlevania game of all time.
Good and evil are just words. Power always wins.
Thanks for watching Mojo Plays. Be sure to subscribe and click on the link in the description below to check out our suggestion page and vote on what content you'd like to see us cover next.